I'm black. What's your ethnicity? I'm black. So now y'all see this shirt I got on, right? That's black. You know what I'm saying? What's up, BC Dynasty? This is your boy, the man, the myth, and the legend, Yoruba. Benai Ephraim of the tribe of Yosef. Shalom, peace, and blessings to the Zion Dynasty family. When I tell y'all I love y'all, I couldn't even say it enough, right? You guys keep us motivated. You keep us encouraged. Without you guys, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. I'm just trying to be obedient to the Most High Yah and put my brick on the wall, y'all. So shout out to my lovely melanated race of the chosen people of the Most High Yah. All praises be to the Most High Yah. Y'all, I got a banker. And first of all, I gotta say this. I'm not trying to be petty, y'all. I really ain't. Like, for real. Like, I'm not trying to harass this dude. Like, shout out to Alan Parr. I love the brother because he's an Israelite, as far as I know. And unless his great-great-grandpappy was Esau or something, I don't know. But what I do know is he's my brother. He's my brother. We are the same people. I'm not trying to comfort this dude, y'all. But this is my thing with these urban apologists, right? Especially the black ones. I'm really, like, dude, why are you coming against your people for trying to uplift the cultural narrative of you? We're trying to tell you where you come from, right? We're trying to restore esteem and nobility and history and identity to us. Negro, you was on the slave ships with us, right? Your forefathers came over here in captivity. So, y'all, I'm not trying to come for the brother. But it's crazy because right when I was thinking, I was like, man, this dude, I can't really find, I feel like I want to do another reaction. It's so much that didn't happen, y'all, since we took a hiatus off the channel. And I want to apologize to you guys again. It's just so much that's been going on that we need Israelite perspectives on this stuff, y'all. It's so many Christians, white, black, blue, green, that's coming against Israel, that's coming against this awakening. And it's not enough of us addressing this stuff. It's the same generals that are out there dealing with this stuff. And they're getting overwhelmed, right? By having to defend the people, just them alone, right? So I saw this video on, what's this cat's name? I think it's Mike Winger, right? And the only reason I know this dude's name, y'all, is because this guy, this is not the first time he's come for Israelites. Not too long back, Vocab was on his channel, and he was asking Vocab, how do you deal with these Israelites? And they're doing this whole thing, and I'm gonna have that clip in here, y'all.
That way. Vocab Malone, also known as the Street Apologist, and I have a link to his YouTube channel down below if you guys want to check it out. I've known Vocab for a while now. We met a few years ago, but today we're talking about something that you've spent a great deal of time working on, which is Black Hebrew Israelites. And this is a particular group that I don't know as much about, but I've been asked about a lot and thought it'd be good to bring someone on who knows what's up to walk us through. Who are they, what they believe, how to interact with them, how to actually reach them and change minds, and to talk about why it matters. This particular group is concerning for a few different reasons. So, Vocab, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and then introduce us to the Black Hebrew Israelites? Like, who are they?
Sure. When I was in high school, I started researching my own faith to make sure it was real, and I got engrossed in apologetics to answer my own questions. And as I did that, I wanted to tell other people. I started telling other people. They had questions, so then I had to go research their questions. Next thing I know, evangelism and apologetics were connected, and I found myself, for lack of a better phrase, out on the street talking to people. And through that, interacted with all kinds of beliefs and ideas, including the Hebrew Israelites. And so that's when I started really studying them more, because at the time there wasn't a lot of resources. These days there's a little bit more. And I just kind of went in, and I just really never stopped, because the further I went, it seems like the ideology kept on growing and growing and growing. And so it was kind of a situation where we needed all hands on deck. And so there's a number of us, and we deal with the ideas presented in the ever-changing theology, sometimes online and sometimes even out on the corner, on the street, you know, face-to-face as well.
Yeah, in fact, you were just down in my area.
But then I find out a month ago, brother had Alan Parr on his channel. I'm like, what is this dude's aim? I suspect he's an Ashkenazi Jew. I don't know. But they have some affinity to keep close so-called African American, so-called Crayola color black, so-called two continent slapped African American. They want to keep us close because they can almost tell that, oh man, the time's up. The Asian Negroes are waking up, right? I'm gonna try to keep it clean for Shawnee D in our editing, right? So we're gonna react to this a little bit, y'all. I don't know how long I'm gonna react to this. I get frustrated having to defend our ethnicity just from me listening to it. I can only imagine some of my brethren that been reacting to this stuff for years, 10, 20, 15 years. Dealing with this madness. But yeah, y'all, so with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this thing going. The recording is going on now. Let me open this up, me brother. Let me push play.
A Hebrew Israelite will translate the word Egypt as bondage. They won't say this refers to
Man, he came out the gate.
Place of Egypt on the map. They'll say it really represents bondage. So let's read it from their perspective. The Lord shall bring African people into bondage to America with ships. That's how we got there.
Oh Lord, I can already tell this one to be some.
The Hebrew Israelites. Now, you may have heard of them as the Black Hebrew Israelites, but just so you know that.
Okay, y'all. First of all, I mean, I'm not gonna pause. I'm gonna try, y'all. I'm gonna try. I ain't gonna make two promises, but I love the way Christians that believe in the prophetic inspiration of the text, that believe in the prophetic insight in the layer upon layer metaphorical prophetic word that is the scriptures, some kind of way want to take things literal when it comes to so-called African Americans, right? Because we take Deuteronomy 28 and show that, wow, Moshe Hanavi, is prophesying that the children of Israel would go into slavery on ships, that was just not talking about the Assyrian or the Babylon or the Medo-Persian captivities, but it was prophesying about a future captivity. If we can prove to you guys that a lot of us over here, if not 99.9% of African Americans, descend from West African tribes that descend from Israelites, then that proves the interpretation that we're bringing out. Let me explain it. If we say that Deuteronomy 28:68 is saying that us African Americans, us Israelites, will go into slavery on slave ships to America, if we're saying that's what Deuteronomy 28:68 was saying, or at least one interpretation, or one prophetic insight, if we can prove we're the people, then that validates the interpretation. Because Israel did go into slavery in America. That proves that Deuteronomy 28:68 that says you shall go into slavery on ships can be used as referring to us. And most of these scholars know that, right? We understand that in Deuteronomy 18:18, Moses said that the Most High was going to raise up another prophet like unto him. You could take that as Yeshua, the son of Nun, Joshua, or you could take that as Yeshua that came 2,000 years ago. These Christians are playing semantic, right? But I just wanted to put that out there. They love to be literal with that Deuteronomy 28:68 stuff, and you can take it both ways, and it doesn't discredit what we're saying. But yeah, it's crazy, y'all. So let me play it.
That's the derogatory term. They don't associate with the Black Hebrew. It's Hebrew Israelites because they don't believe that it has to do with their ethnicity or the color of their skin.
Because Israel was black, so to say black or Black Hebrew Israelites is remedial and is bugged out.
Like that. So I'm gonna try my best to kind of shorten this one because there's a lot of stuff that we want to talk about as it relates to this. And the first thing, guys, that I'm going to say about the Hebrew Israelites is that they're not monolithic. All right, they're not monolithic, which basically means that with each group that you meet, there's variances. There's all sorts of different.
What is Mike getting out of this?
That you're going to meet, camps of people
I know.
that you're going to meet, and I'm going to give you a few of them here. So just know that when you're talking to somebody who is a Hebrew Israelite, and I'm going to say this later when I talk about the tips on how to really reach them, the first thing that you had better figure out before you make an assumption about what this person's view is or their beliefs is what camp are they coming from and what sect of Hebrew Israelites are they coming from. So let me just give you a few different groups in terms of what they believe about divine authority. All right. Now, this group is really, they're hard to pin down because there's so many different beliefs. But first and foremost, you have the groups that are the Torah only. So you're going to have some groups out there where the only 5 books of the Bible that they believe is divine truth is just the Torah. That's it. First 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch. And the rest of it you can throw out. The rest of it, there's no real value from it. Okay, so you're going to have those people that are in the Hebrew Israelite camp. And then you also have people who...
Y'all, I'm going to say one thing about this. I love the way they do these, who are the Hebrew Israelites, and they don't have people that subscribe to black people being descendants of the Israelites on the thing, on the discussion, right? I don't know. And another thing, he's never going to try to refute our ethnicity. That's the clever thing that I find with these urban apologists. They'll never try to say, okay, are some African Americans, or can we prove, are they linked to Israelites? Are the Igbo linked to being Israelites? Are the Yoruba, the tribes that these African Americans come from? They're never going to do that. They're just going to try to find some other reason to divide it up and exploit it as being against the gospel, which we know the gospel 2,000 years ago was a totally different concept than the gospel of Constantine and that kind of thing. But let's continue.
Subscribe to the whole Bible, but you're also adding on the Apocrypha. So you have the New Testament, the Old Testament, and the Apocrypha. All right? So that's another camp of people. So you already can see why it's important for you, first and foremost, to figure out who am I talking to and which camp are they in? Because if you just assume that, okay, this person only believes in the Torah, you're going to get into some deep waters where they're going to say, no, what are you talking about? You're misrepresenting me. We believe in the whole Bible, right? So you got to make sure you know where you're coming from. And then the third thing is some of them believe in the Bible, right? Now, once again, how they interpret the Bible, as we'll see in just a moment,
I don't know.
is very different, oftentimes,
What?
from how we would interpret it.
I'm sorry.
Some will say, okay, no, we're of the camp where we're Hebrew Christians and we believe in the entire Bible, no Apocrypha, same Bible that you believe. Okay, so that's another camp.
Yeah, okay. I'm not laughing that he said some Israelites believe in the Bible. What? Okay. The whole Apocrypha issue, most of the Apocrypha that was taken out, I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. A lot of the Apocrypha was actually dealing with a lot of history. When you're talking about the birth of the Greco-Roman Empire or the Greeks, Alexander of Macedonia, Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Greek, a lot of that history. You know, the book of Malachi ends with the Persian captivity. But if you know prophetically Daniel's vision of the statue, it has the head of gold, arms of silver, the abdomen of brass, the iron, and then the iron mixed with clay. That Greek abdomen, you don't see that. All you do is see the ending with the Medo-Persian Empire in the book of Malachi, the silent years, and then when Yeshua comes on the scene, it's the Roman Empire. But we know historically after the Medo-Persian Empire was the Greeks. They took all the Maccabees out. Why? Because we learn about a phenomenon called Hellenization, which is when the Greeks were making Israelites deny their culture or they were put to death. They were making them eat swine's flesh. You can read this in the book of Maccabees, 1st and 2nd Maccabees. They were making them worship Zeus, and the term was crossing over or Hellenization. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like black fraternities and sororities. Secret societies of our people have known this knowledge, but a lot of that knowledge was taken out of the Bible. The Apocrypha, well, the word Apocrypha just means hidden or hidden books, secret knowledge. So in terms of the authenticity of the Apocrypha, a lot of these books are historical, but Constantine and his boys felt like it was too much into the Jews and history and that kind of thing. This is about spirituality and morality and the salvation of mankind. So they felt it upon themselves to take that stuff out. So that's just a little nugget for that, y'all.
And the fourth camp, and this is the one I want to talk about for just a moment, is Old Testament and New Testament, but no Paul. No Paul's letters, right? We don't believe in Paul's letters. And you have to understand the ideology behind this, and we're going to get into this in just a second. But the idea is this. Many Hebrew Israelites in this camp will deny the divine authority of Paul's letters because they believe that white slave owners would utilize certain passages in Paul's letters as I guess as proof text or establishing the right to enslave or to enslave people, right? To enslave Africans, right? So whenever the transatlantic slave trade, which we're going to get into in just a moment, and so they believe that, hey, Paul teaches that, you know, slaves should obey their masters and this and that and the other. So we don't believe that Paul is inspired by God. So you have that camp, all right? You have that camp as well. Now, another one as well, and basically all of these camps do have one thing in common. They're pretty much all King James only. So if you're ever going to talk to a Hebrew Israelite, just know that more than likely they're going to be quoting the King James.
Okay, to deal with Paul, you guys got to understand, Paul was a lawyer. He was a scholar. And he was, by textbook definition, a Gentile. Paul was a Roman-born citizen. So he's this Roman-born citizen that knows his ethnicity, even down to the tribe of Benjamin. So you got to understand the who, what, when, where, and why when you just jump into the Bible. Paul was a smart man. The way he spoke and communicated, there was a lot of legality and politics and wisdom by the Most High that he pulled from. A lot of Christians butcher his interpretation, which is why a lot of Hebrew Israelites say, we ain't dealing with what y'all talking about, right? Some of them reject Paul and they don't know that, well, you ain't really coming against Paul, you're coming against the Christian interpretation, just like Jesus, right? Some Israelites reject Yeshua in error because they're rejecting the Eurocentric version, and when they keep hearing that, they're like, well, I don't want to have nothing to do with that. But that's why Israelites, it's our job to say, whoa, 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 family, it's not Yeshua that's the problem. Yeshua was a black leader, a black Judean nationalist that was coming to Israel to free his people, and he was offering salvation to them and to restore them back to the promises that the Most High said they would be above all nations. But they rejected that. A lot of politics because Herod and Edomites were in there doing this stuff. But don't reject Yeshua. It's the white Jesus. So some Israelites reject Paul because of this Paul that's saying neither Jew nor Gentile, or neither Jew nor Greek, or neither male nor female, and Israel don't matter no more. That's the interpretation that Eurocentric Christianity, or Constantine Roman Catholicism, has force-fed us for umpteen hundred years, 400 years, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
That's it. Another thing that you want to think about is, this is so important. They stress a strict adherence to the Old Testament law, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. That is their thing. That is their go-to. Because, once again, Hebrew Israelites, so they're still trying to associate themselves with the religious system, if you will, of the Hebrew culture. All right, so the strict adherence to the Old Testament law. And then the last thing I'll say about their divine authority is that you need to be very careful whenever you talk to them, which we'll talk about in just a moment, because they are very, very well studied in the Old Testament law. So if you're not up on your Old Testament law, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in terms of how you interact with them. You may want to strongly consider whether you want to get into a discussion with them, because I'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, let's get into some good stuff here about them. What are some of their beliefs? Now, this gets very, very interesting, and hopefully you'll see after I go through this how easy it is for cults to emerge and how they can take certain parts of the Bible and draw out a theology that is from a complete misinterpretation of it. So here's the idea, guys. Hebrew Israelites believe that some people of color are the lost tribes of Israel. And they...
Yeah, I'm finna pit up Derek Lang, the anthropologist, Origins of the Yoruba and the Lost Tribes of Israel. I just don't understand these urban apologists. We didn't come up with this stuff. The Bible been written thousands of years ago. We ain't no cult because of an ethnicity. I say that all the time. How is ethnicity a cult? Can you refute it, Alan Parr? Can you prove that none of these West African tribes are Israelites? If not, then all right. That's it.
Primarily derive this from a misinterpretation of Deuteronomy 28. Now, I'm going to read a couple of scriptures from here just so that you can see how they twist them and how they misunderstand them, and you can hopefully get an idea of how they come to the conclusion that they, African people, people of color, are the lost tribes of Israel. Okay? So I'm reading from the King James. I don't normally always, but I'm going to read from the King James so you can see how they're going to get it. So Deuteronomy 28:41, it says this: Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Now, let me explain and give you the breakdown. Deuteronomy 28 is a chapter where God, through the prophet Moses, is telling his people, you have a choice, blessings or cursings. If you do what is right and you follow God, these blessings will follow you. But if you disobey God, then you can expect these curses to follow you.
All praise to the Most High for the reading of his word. Facts.
The Hebrew Israelite does is that they read this passage of Scripture, then they look at the black context, the African context of slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, and they read that context or that experience, I want to make it clear, back into the text, and they say that Deuteronomy 28 is not prophesying this to the nation of Israel. No. Deuteronomy 28 is prophesying all of these things about African people. Right?
That's where he lost me, y'all. We're saying, yes, Moses was saying this to Israel, that this would happen. And because that has happened to so-called Africa is a continent, y'all. Africa has the most tribal groups in it than any continent on earth. Over 300 or so tribes. So what tribe do African Americans come from? What group of West Africans, right? We're arguing that the West African tribes that we come from descend from Israel. And that Moses saying, Israel, this is going to happen to y'all if you don't guard your heritage. It happened to us vis-a-vis proving, now this is just one piece of evidence, that we are in fact the descendants of that people under that curse. All right.
So now let's read it through their lens again. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Doesn't that sound like the transatlantic slave trade and the 400 years of slavery that African people were taken from Africa, brought over against our will? Sons and daughters, we have them, but we can't enjoy them because sons and daughters and families were separated from one another when we went into what? Captivity or bondage or slavery. So they will look at the text in Deuteronomy 28 and say, this is a prophecy about us, about African people, not the nation of Israel. Well, the nation of Israel, but we are the nation of Israel. We are the true tribes of Israel. We're the lost tribes of Israel. Let's keep going. All right? Deuteronomy 28, 64, 65. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even until the other, and to the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Christianity.
Look at verses like this and say, you know what? Weren't we as Africans scattered among all the people from one end of the earth, Africa, to the other, right? America, right? So this must be referring to us. We are the true tribes of Israel.
Yeah, I gotta say, brother doing a good job just reading the scriptures. That's why I say just read the scriptures, bruh. And people can be able to get the interpretation on their own. Or the Most High Spirit, right, will reveal to them the word behind the word, or the Rhema word, the truth of what this scripture is saying. I love it. I love it.
We are the lost tribes of Israel, right? So that's why they're calling themselves Hebrew Israelites. Now I'll go to this in just a second. Let me go to another one. And among these nations, now watch this, thou shalt find no ease. Was it easy to be in slavery as an African person in 400 years? No, it wasn't. These verses, they will claim, are talking about the plight and the experience of African people and not the nation of Israel. Now let me backtrack. We know as evangelical Christians that this is talking about the Babylonian captivity.
Okay. This is where Christians show their hand, right? Or this is where Alan Parr has showed his hand. If you know history, right? If you know Bible history, what Alan Parr is saying is partially correct, right? So the first captivity that Israel will go to is really Assyria. Assyria conquered the 10 tribes. Babylon came and conquered the last 2. So by that time, all of Israel was in slavery. But the problem with appropriating Babylon or Assyria, or even the Medes and the Persians, or even the Greeks, or even the Romans as a fulfillment of the entirety of Deuteronomy 28 is what Christ said. Christ in the New Testament in Luke chapter 21, I'm going to put that scripture up, says that the land of Israel will be trodden down by the Gentiles, and that Yah's people would be scattered or go into captivity. So wow, Christ is showing that, wait a second, there's still something else to come. Now, what was he talking about? This is post-Roman. Now, when you look at Deuteronomy 28, it says that you shall be carried away as swift as the eagle flies. And if you're familiar with Daniel's vision, the emblem of Rome was the eagle. So a lot of Israel, even during the time of Yeshua, knew that this eagle, this Roman system would be the end. But Christ said, okay, but there's still something else to come. So what's really going on? A neo-Roman empire would continue and scatter Yah's people to the 4 corners of the earth as swift as the eagle flies. Now that's when you introduce America, and whose emblem is the eagle. The book of Obadiah and how it would set its nest in the stars, talking about Edom, right? He who dwells in the clefts of the rock. Now look at the power of the Most High's word. So we can just hear where Alan is going. He's basically saying that all the curses that Israel uses has already been fulfilled. The problem with that, Alan Parr, is being scattered to the 4 corners of earth, first of all, because the known world during that time period, we weren't talking about America, right? The earth still had to be populated. I mean, this Roman European eagle had to set its nest throughout the whole earth and scatter Yah's people to every known continent, right? What systematic captivity or slave trade scattered a people everywhere? Now this is just common sense, y'all, right? Let's continue.
Where God allowed his chosen people to be taken away to Babylon for 70 years of captivity, and then God allowed them to return to their land. That's how we believe these verses were fulfilled in prophecy. The Hebrew Israelite says, no. This wasn't talking about the biblical nation.
We're not saying, right? You have to understand the Hebrew scriptures are layer upon layer. When you're talking about Joseph going into the pit and being sold into Egypt by his brethren, we know the Yoruba people claim to be of the tribe of Ephraim, who is the son of Joseph. So what happened? You had Hebrews in Africa that sold Josephites into an Egyptian slavery in America. Now that's just one example of how the Bible has layers upon layers. You could say Joseph got put in the pit, or you can say a believer in God can go through a pit season where even people that are supposed to be his family turned against him. And this is how preachers get down. They look at the layers of application of the scriptures. I think some Jewish rabbis say it's like 7 different ways of understanding the scriptures and that kind of thing. So I find it disingenuous where people say that Israelites pulling out this revelation of Yah's people, that, oh, it can't be applied to that at all. Well, if we're the people and we can prove these tribes in Africa are the people, then we can prove that our prophetic interpretation is founded in truth, because we are that people and it did happen to that people, and we are the proof of that, right?
Well, this is talking about the African people, right? Let's keep going. But the Lord, okay. Among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. Were we resting in slavery? No, we were picking cotton, right? So, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. Do you hear this? This all sounds like everything that Africans experienced in slavery. No ease of life, no rest, trembling heart, scared, failing of eyes, sorrow of mind. Here we go. And then another one. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee. You will doubt whether you'll even live again. And thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of your life. You won't even be. Our Hebrew Israelites, we are the true tribes of Israel. But they believe that the Jews are just usurping their right to be God's chosen people, and therefore they are anti-Semitic. Now, I need to explain this because I don't want to get into too much trouble with it.
Now, you guys, I kind of fast forwarded through some, and he's just going through the curses. Now he's making his next point, right? He's saying that because we believe that a certain portion of Jewry today are really Khazars in descent, really converts in descent, and have thus replaced the birthright of the lineage of Israel with practicers of Judaism that were anti-Semitic. Now let's deal with this. This is the textbook white supremacist chess move that white folks love to pull whenever we criticize people groups, specifically when black people challenge, right, the oppression that has gone against us. And we call out these nations for what they've been doing. Oh, it's anti-Semitism. That's what they did with Nick Cannon. That's what they did with Deshaun Jackson. Let me clarify something with y'all. According to KRS-One, Shem was a black man in Africa, right? And I said that in a jazzy way, but let me be a little serious for a moment. A Shemitic person is a descendant of Shem. Who is Shem? Noah had 3 sons, that through these sons the earth was populated post-flood. Shem was one of these people. Ham is the father of a lot of ancient Kemetic and Canaanite African people. Japheth, his borders would be the European nations. Shem was the father of the Asiatic people, or the Jewish people. Not just the seed of Jacob, but also Esau. Now y'all understand, because Esau was Shemitic. So for black people to challenge these Edomites, right, and challenge modern Jewry to prove without a shadow of a doubt that you are the lawful heirs of that land, when a lot of your scholars, including Shlomo Sand and Arthur Koestler, have done extensive research into the invention of the Jewish people, instead of y'all having to prove it, you're going to call black people anti-Shemitic when we are descendants of Israel. Am I anti-self? Understand. Israel is a descendant of Shem. So it's a political term that has no weight when applied to African Americans for criticizing this stuff, because we are Shemitic ourselves. So it's just a way to get us to be quiet, or try to get us to be quiet, y'all. And it's politics.
Israelites. Not every Hebrew Israelite is an anti-Semitic. I'm talking about some of the extremist groups. The extremist.
Okay. Do I believe that some of these European Jews are actual Israelites? Of course. And this is why. Israel will be scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, right? So it's not a color, it's not a black or white thing. If your DNA is E1B1A, if you descend from the ancient Negro Hebrew Israelites of thousands of years ago, you may have mixed in with a bunch of people. It may have been a black Israelite man that slept with a white European, and they had a kid, and that kid slept with another white European, and that kid had a kid, and that kid had a kid. When you look at Blake Griffin's son, for example, you would think, man, he looks almost European. But when you know Blake's history, when you know Blake's dad, you can see how that happened. So it's not a phenotype, is what I'm saying. It's a lineage. So are there some white or quote unquote white European looking Israelites? Yes, right? But the bulk of the 1948 migration were actually, from history, Khazaric in origin. Khazar, when you look into the Khazar history, King Bulan of, I believe, 745 AD, converted that Turkish Russian people to the religion of Judaism when confronted by Roman Catholicism and the pressure of Islam. Now, it's a long historical thing. I can do a video on it, y'all. But basically, he adopted Judaism and converted that entire region. A lot of that people are what made up Ashkenaz or Germany during that time period, right? And a lot of those are the ones that came. This is, I didn't invent that. Arthur Koestler, who is himself an Ashkenazi Jew, Shlomo Sand, countless other people have done research into this, y'all. I have those books and I might do a video on it. So yeah, so the concerns that birthright Israelites have are backed by history and science. It just is.
There's some extremist groups that are anti-Semitic, and so you have to understand that. Why? Because they believe that Jews are stealing their identity, if you will, right? So that's the idea. Now, some extremist groups believe that white people, sorry, all my white, that you don't know what you're talking about. Because if you don't know Hebrew and they claim to know Hebrew, they're going to use need to make sure you understand that context. And then finally, you need to know which camp you're interacting with, which is what I said earlier. Because you don't want to make assumptions that you know what they believe. When you might be talking to somebody who believes the whole Bible, you may assume that they're a Torah only Hebrew Israelite. So I know that was a lot. I probably went on a lot longer than I.
All right. So I think that's about it, y'all. Basically, he goes through the curses. He tries to say how the curses have already been applied to the Babylonian captivity. And he tries to say that black people are anti-Semitic because we challenge the present jury to substantiate their ethnical claim. You got to understand. The second prime minister of Egypt, Gamal Abdul Nasser, said it himself. He said, you'll never have peace over here because you left black and came back white. Everyone knows this statement. I believe he was later killed in the 6-Day War. I believe 1967. So you guys got to understand, we're not anti-Shemitic because we are Shemitic. We're challenging those people that are in that land that have not gone through the curses that we have, fulfilling our obligation to Yah for not keeping the commandments. And we've been over here 400 years and we know the time's up. We're asking for reparations. We're trying to get back to that land, and we're challenging the people that have had a hand in the oppression of the biblical Israelites. So I pray that the brother Alan Parr just sits down and talks with an Israelite. I know a lot of Israelites that will be willing to just talk to him. We love them. We love all people. I don't teach hatred towards anybody. I believe in treating all people with the love of the Creator because He created all people. But if you love all people, you can't watch Yah's people be oppressed. They just asking for them. Well, just tell the truth who we are. We're begging for people just to treat us right. You can't say you believe in the Creator and you're watching that go about. And then you attack them for trying to breathe. Literally, black people have to say, I can't breathe. We have to march and do all this stuff, right? No other people has to do that. So that's where we're coming from. If you love the Most High, Christ says you will go after the least of these. Christ left the 99 for the lost sheep, right? He left the house son for the prodigal. He rejoiced at the prodigal son. The Creator is about the destitute and oppressed people, and most certainly His own chosen people that are oppressed in the earth. So with that, y'all, I just wanted to kind of do a follow-up. I'm not gonna keep roasting the brother, y'all. These brothers are going hard, and we as Israel have to stand up and let them know you ain't gonna be able to come against us, right? If something like this was going on against Chinese people, the whole country of China would go ham, right? And we as Israelites have to stand up for who we are. We have to be willing to fight for our history and show the Most High that we are going to do everything to secure this glorious birthright that you have given us. So with that, y'all, I love y'all from the depths of my heart's cry. Peace and blessings. Shalom. I love you with the love of the Creator. Y'all be blessed. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and all that good stuff. And with that, I'm going to say shalom. Love you guys.